All right, now let's talk dollars, shilling. What exactly is happening there? This issue of breaching 150 shilling against the dollar mark. Why is it a big deal? Now, I'd like to take a look at some numbers here, and just so you know, we have already transitioned to BizChat. I have Ken Gishinga here and Dr. Olwenyi. I'm looking at history of the dollar and the shilling, gentlemen. In 2005, on a similar date, 27th, 2005, 73 shillings and 60 cents. That is shilling against the dollar. Jump a few years, 2014, similar date, 89 shillings and 40 cents. Now let's go last year, okay? Because I realized the breach from the 80s, 90s majorly happened in the year 2015, where on a similar date in the year 2015, it was 101 shillings and 66 cents. Now, last year, exactly a year ago, the dollar was trading at 121 shillings and 27 cents. That is shilling against the dollar. And today, a year after, it is 150 shillings and 36 cents. Quite a concern there. Quite a jump right there. Ken, I mean, we can talk about what is happening globally. The United States has been raising rates. Maybe bring us to an understanding, first of all, why when we look at old graphs, the dollar is appreciating against all currencies or major currencies.
Many thanks, Noah. Indeed, the dollar has been on a strong rally position over the last few years. Number one, it has to do with the rising interest rates. The Fed has been raising interest rates for the last couple of years. Then also, if you look at US government securities, the yields have also been rising. In fact, last week we saw the US 10-year bond, which really is the benchmark for global finance, hitting 5%. Now, when yields in the US go up, a lot of the foreign investors in countries like Kenya or across Africa start moving their assets to chase that higher yield. So we've seen capital flight from emerging and frontier countries such as Kenya.
Okay. And
that's really what has led to the global dollar rally, particularly in the last couple of years.
Definitely. Dr. Olwenyi, somebody says, the globe might be going a particular direction, even if the dollar is strengthening. Is there a way, especially from where you sit, you're an academic, and I like, because there are parallels between you and the Treasury Cabinet Secretary. He always notes how he's an academic, and lecturer, which is very important. Talk to me, as a currency, how do you withstand such a move when a superpower, a major currency holder as the US, when they're making these changes? Is it that we just flow? Or are there measures that a country can take sort of to buffer itself from such appreciations?
No, a single country might not manage to strengthen itself against a superpower like the US, but a bloc of certain countries can do that. And probably that is what informs the BRICS and other blocs which are also trying to compete with the US, and they are saying, let's now take this other direction. But as a single country like Kenya, a developing economy, that one, they cannot really do something when the US decide to take directions the way Ken is saying, when US is intentionally raising the yields and doing that.
Okay. And Dr. Olwenyi, this is just off cuff. You're very passionate about BRICS, as an alternative. It's very important to know that. I'm not saying Dr. Olwenyi is biased, by the way. It's just saying it's good to have alternatives. Now coming to our context, the central bank governors spoke recently, and people were worried. What exactly is happening here? And this is what he's saying, that the shilling is overvalued. by between 20 to 25%. And he said this according to IMF and World Bank. When you talk about shilling being overvalued, Ken, what does that mean?
Well, that debate started back in 2017, 2018, when the IMF looked at the way the shilling is valued, and in their assessment, in their models, using a model called EBL Lite, they assessed that it was overvalued. Now, how do you know when a currency is really overvalued or undervalued? What is a litmus test? Number one, the best litmus test is to see how much intervention is needed by the regulator. When you're in a perfectly equilibrium point, the correct market price, you need very little intervention from the regulator. So anytime you see central banks constantly intervening, selling dollars to the market, that's normally a sign that possibly you're not at the market price. But in the last few years, the central bank has had depleted reserves. So they have not had the opportunity to have enough dollars to intervene in the market. So one would argue that particularly in the last 1 year, the shilling has been finding its natural equilibrium point because it's about supply and demand. And with the CBK's hands being tied, because the CBK needs to maintain about 4 months of import cover, sometimes it's gone to 3.9, 3.8, meaning they have not had enough reserves to intervene in the market. It tells me that we've been slowly approaching the equilibrium point because there's been very little intervention. So I think it's something to reflect upon, particularly the fact that the central mandate of the central bank is price stability. Well, also when you allow the currency to slide too much, you can generate imported inflation because you're importing fuel in dollars, you're importing food, you're importing medicine. So if you allow the currency to slide too quickly, you can actually have imported inflation into the economy. So I think for them, the CBK has always said that they don't have a preferred exchange rate position. And when they do intervene, it has been to just stem volatility in the market, but not really to predetermine a particular exchange rate.
All right. Dr. Lonye, because now here is pitting, I can't call it a whole regime against the other, but essentially even the conflict that we saw, sort of tension in the transition between the former governor and the current governor in terms of outlook over some issues, and it's good to have different perspective. But this one comes in very critically. It's like saying, you guys, because the former governor was, no, we are not propping up the shilling. And here the current governor is saying, it's been overvalued. Even the World Bank has been saying this for the longest time. What image does this paint in regards to governance and the role of CBK and its objectivity?
Well, of course, one would say that people are free to express their view. The current governor, the former governor, so it's not, it's according to the perspectives that individuals do have. And of course, when you are running something is when you see what is inside it. So from the previous governor, he saw what was inside it, and this one. But I think purely the case that we are talking about is we look at the fundamentals. What is really the fundamentals? It doesn't really, it's not really about who is right, wrong, but when we look at, as we like empirical things in the other side of academia, we talk about what is really causing a currency to depreciate. What are the causes of currency depreciation? One would go to the basic fundamentals. How are we doing in terms of our trade, in terms of balance of payment, in terms of balance of trade, in terms of the interest rates, the inflation? Those are the fundamentals that speaks when it comes to such a time. It doesn't really go to who is right in this or who is wrong in the other side. Fundamentals will always speak.
All right. Yeah. Definitely. Gentlemen, we went to take a short break. Listen to this quote. Appearing before the National Assembly on September 27th, Treasury Cabinet Secretary actually said that Kenya had largely held its currency constant in the previous 5 to 7 years, even as the country's price structures changed, leaving it misaligned with the real economy. The question is, what cost do we need to pay to realign this currency with its real value, first of all, and secondly, also to create a proper buffer where we are not in such a position as we are today? That after a short break right here on Business Today. Stay with us.